Hey guys, Senior RKC Josh Henkin here, along with strength coach Troy Anderson. What we want to do is break down some myths of kettlebell training. I'm sort of chuckling because there's so many common myths that have come about, especially as kettlebells have gotten popular. There's sort of people that have a back and forth with, are they as valuable as we make them out to be? We're going to actually show you they're far more valuable than often we think they are. What we're going to do is show you the difference between a kettlebell front squat and a barbell front squat. A lot of people will argue, well, kettlebells can't make me really stronger because I can stack on so much more weight on the bar. Now granted, at a very elite level, that may be true. But I very rarely, and I don't think Coach Anderson have, seen people squat 48 kilogram bells like they were nothing. What we're going to do is look at why there's a difference, because the front position is very similar in both. So what causes us to say that you can get strong with kettlebells? We have pretty much the same weight set up here. What we're going to look is trunk lean. So the more upright Troy's trunk is, the more weight is actually being put through his legs. The more his trunk starts to come forward, the more the weight is being dispersed through his low back as well. So a lot of people, they make the squat obviously into a low back lift. But what we're comparing is not a front squat to back squat, but we're comparing a front squat to front squat. Well, let's watch his trunk lean through the two movements. So Troy's going to go ahead and clean the two bells first. He's going to set himself up in a squat position. We're just going to do maybe 2 reps. So let's watch how upright Troy can maintain himself. That's a pretty darn vertical position right there. Nice, Troy. And we'll set him on down. So we'll give him a second to breathe, and we're going to see, can he replicate? I mean, I don't know if it's possible for him to get much more vertical than that in the same position with the barbell. Again, almost equivalent weight. So Troy, let's go ahead and we'll grab that bar. I'm going to move the kettlebells a little bit out of your way. So when he comes out of the rack, Troy's done a million barbell front squats, so we're going to just watch him. Come down nice and slow. Very dramatic difference in the trunk lean. Okay? Not saying this is not a good squat, this is still a great squat, but we're taking away load from his legs by having the trunk lean come forward. So it's a wrong sort of assumption to say a squat is a squat. One of the big advantages through the kettlebell squat is that upright torso not only takes away more pressure from the low back, but actually loads the legs a lot more. So we're going to check out a couple more myths in just a moment. All right guys, another thing we're going to look at is using uneven sized kettlebells for our front rack position. What we're going to do in a moment is Troy's going to perform a lunge in that position. There's a couple of reasons we want to do this. Number one, it's important to remember, anytime the weight is in the rack position, that's very much like doing a standing plank. So all the principles should coincide. Tight lats, tall thoracic spine, make sure we don't fold into the position. Using uneven weights is a way to introduce an asymmetrical loading pattern through the body. Our body works in natural X patterns when we walk, when we run, and so forth. Unfortunately, when we train, most people don't train those X patterns. Between the offset position that we're going to have with the kettlebells and the lunge, we're introducing that 2 different mediums. So when Troy goes ahead and cleans both bells here, he's using about 20 kilo on one side and 12 kilo on the other side. So a rather dramatic difference. So as he steps, not only is he having an unstable position with his body, he's also having the load uneven upon his trunk. So what he's trying to do is he's moving sagittally, but he's resisting both frontal and transverse forces. Both again, from the weight he's holding in the rack position, as well as the lunge position itself. A highly underrated drill that you can use in your training. Now, of course, if you have someone who can't quite lunge yet, you can definitely do the same thing in the front rack squat, and you'll find a great opportunity to train some of these different stability mechanisms. Okay guys, last drill we're going to look at a couple different sequences is a kettlebell bent over row. Now right off the bat, using a kettlebell over a dumbbell is advantageous both from the grip dynamic, which is going to activate more muscles through the upper arm, as well as the fact that the weight to handle is much different. The center of mass of the weight is further from the handle, so any weight you use in a kettlebell is going to feel heavier than a dumbbell. Now the bent over row is such a key position because if we're going to teach swings, snatches, cleans, even deadlifts, we need to show that our ability to hold the hip hinge for duration. It's been shown that core endurance is more correlated to low back health than core strength. So what Troy's going to do, he's going to deadlift both bells here in a moment. He's taking a little more narrow stance, which I would actually prefer, but that's going to make him a little bit more unstable. So he's going to start from the top down. So as he hinges, he's going to weight back upon his heels. This is teaching us our base deadlift position. So he's going to start just by pulling both kettlebells up and in. We want to make sure we get full shoulder retraction and depression, so shoulders down and back without having low back movement. This is going to be very important for when we do more dynamic kettlebell drills. Let's relax for a second, Troy. So as a base level, we want to see, can someone hold that for time under tension? So we want to do nice, slow, controlled reps, especially eccentrically, to make sure we don't fold through our torso. So we got hip hinge, we got a plank, and we got shoulder retraction and extension. So we want to make sure all those components are playing together. Now, without even changing the weight, we can make the exercise more difficult by going to an alternating feel. So when Troy's going to hip hinge back. As he starts to alternate, what we start to develop is a rotational feel to the movement. So he's actually got to resist with the opposing hip and torso from rotating his body. So we want to make sure he doesn't laterally sway or rotate through the spine. And relax, Troy. We're going to do one more version where he's actually going to begin both of them up and lower one down up. So this is going to be really good, because where do most people fatigue? When they deadlift, when they do swings, and even a lot more dynamic exercises, is that thoracic extension and the ability to have endurance to hold the shoulder in proper placement. So we're going to build that endurance up. Troy's going to row both of them in a moment. So his job is to try to keep that tension in between the shoulder blades as one comes down and begins to pull up. There you go. So he's also working not only the postural stability, endurance, and strength, but he's also watching for the ability for that torso to resist rotation and to start hinging upwards. We don't want him to start creeping up in that position. A pair of 20s can be very taxing on a strong individual even like Troy, if you do it right. So I hope this changes some of your preconceptions or even the value that you see overall in kettlebell. Nothing breaks my heart more when people see the kettlebell as only good for a few drills, because the great thing about kettlebells is that it allows you to do so much in such a limited amount of space with such limited equipment that makes any gym an elite gym.